welcome back to Cheese and Turtles. My name is Imogen. In today's video, I'm sharing red flags I've seen in toxic situations, so hopefully you can avoid them. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to do that, give this video a thumbs up, follow me on Instagram, and let's get started. So, I've been through too many toxic situations, unfortunately, and I want to help you avoid yours. If you don't know these signs, then you should, because it will save you a lot of grief and a lot of trauma. So let's get started right away. And the first red flag that I want to talk about is an unwillingness to change, okay? If someone in a toxic situation, and I'm not going to name names, but if someone in a toxic situation knows that they are wrong and they know that they're hurting people and they're showing a very unwillingness to change, and this can be institutional, not just personal, okay? If there is an unwillingness to change, even in the face of evidence that harm is being caused or evidence that things could be better, okay? If there is an unwillingness to change, that is a red flag, and it can be a really big hallmark of a toxic situation. Number two, a big favourite of toxic situations, gaslighting. Now, obviously, gaslighting is something that happens in toxic relationships. It can happen in like toxic jobs. It can happen in like toxic academic scenarios. It can happen in any scenario actually where people are involved and the toxicity is either institutional or personal. So obviously gaslighting makes you doubt yourself. For those of you who don't know, gaslighting is basically making you think you're crazy, using manipulation. So for example, let's say you sent an email to someone and you laid out everything that you wanted to get done, and then they pretended they'd never seen it. And instead of saying, oh, I'm sure you sent the email, but it just didn't come through, or I didn't see it, they'll say, oh, you never sent it. And then you'll be like thinking, that am I crazy? Did I hallucinate that? So when you are made to question yourself about something that you absolutely know to be true, or if someone's done something wrong and it's hurt you, and then they deny ever having done that, or even remembering that, or the existence of it, that is gaslighting, okay? So if you're being gaslit, now you know how to recognize the signs, and that is a red flag of a toxic situation, honey. Get out of there. Number three, manipulation disguised as misunderstanding. This one is a hell of a drug, honestly. I didn't even know that this was a red flag of a toxic situation until like a couple of years ago. But yeah, this is a big one. And once I started seeing it, I could not stop seeing it. So let me explain. So sometimes people will play dumb. And what I mean by playing dumb is they absolutely know what they're doing wrong. Don't get me wrong here, there can be a misunderstanding, but if you've told them very clearly, they know. Trust me, they know, okay? And you don't have to like make excuses for them. They know, okay? And if they try to be like, oh, I didn't understand, like multiple times, they're manipulating you. They're playing dumb. They absolutely know what they're doing. Get out of there. That is a toxic situation, okay? And I am sorry to break it to you, but this is really common. And, to some extent it's human. It's a way to like dodge accountability. And we don't like squaring up to things that we may have done wrong. And, if this is a pattern that you recognize in yourself, then, maybe something to think about, maybe something to reflect on. Because if you're playing dumb and you're pretending to like misunderstand people so you can keep manipulating them, that is a hell of a red flag, okay? So manipulation disguised as misunderstanding and playing dumb, a massive, massive red flag. Trust me, they know. If you've explained it to them at least once, clearly they know. Right, this next point is kind of scary, but let's talk about it. Dual personalities. I don't necessarily mean just in the clinical setting, but I mean in terms of being two-faced. So somebody might be super sweet and then immediately horrible to you, and you're left kind of like with emotional whiplash, trying to decode whatever the hell it was that happened, okay? So if someone's showing dual personalities, I don't necessarily mean this in the traditional clinical sense, but what I do mean this in the way of that they're displaying different emotional sides of themselves in order to manipulate you. So their emotional reactions are incredibly calculated and generally fake. And this might take the form of them being absolutely horrible to you in private, and then in front of everyone else they're incredibly sweet. And so all of your friends are like, what's the problem? They're so lovely. But they don't see what happens like when it's just the two of you, okay? So, or they might do this in terms of like changing it up in terms of time. So they might be like, super sweet to you 99% of the time, and then that 1% they turn into like this absolute monster, and then the rest of the time you're like, oh no, but they're so nice usually, it must have just been a bad day. Yeah, no, okay, if this is a repeated pattern, it's a red flag, and it can be an incredibly toxic situation. It can make you question yourself. Other people can be convinced by it, like taken in as well. So that is a hell of a red flag. If someone is usually super sweet to you in public but horrible in private, or super sweet to you most of the time but then horrible a little bit of the time, they're still horrible to you some of the time, and you don't deserve that. The next thing is conveniently forgetting bad things that happened. So I've had this loads of times when I've tried to, you know, talk to someone in a toxic situation or a toxic person in my life and say, you know, you did this thing that really hurt me. They'll be like, I don't remember that. And then I'll be like, am I making this up? Because, you know, I would never want to talk to someone and say, you did this thing that hurt me, if that wasn't true. Like, that would be horrible, you know? So I was like, oh shit, maybe I made this up. But then I gradually realised that I was being taken for a fucking ride, because they absolutely remembered, and they were just pretending to forget. So again, it was gaslighting. But this is kind of a form of gaslighting that people often don't recognise as gaslighting, because they're like, oh, you know, they just forgot. Like, sure, okay, maybe they did forget, but even if they did forget, let's for a moment assume that they did forget, like genuinely did forget. The fact that you've reminded them of it should be enough to make them say, oh, I'm so sorry, you know, I forgot that happened, but you were hurt, and I apologise, and I won't do that again, okay? So even if they did forget, they should still apologise. And if they're conveniently forgetting a lot, they're not really forgetting. The next thing is a big one, and I've seen this in actually pretty much every toxic situation I've been in, and that is promises of change not backed by actions. So it's when someone says, oh, you know, I'm so sorry, and they do absolutely nothing to make up for it. Or they will just be like, I'm so sorry I hurt you, and then proceed to immediately hurt you again. Or not immediately. Maybe they'll wait for a while, so you get a false sense of security, and then they'll be like, got you. Okay, so once someone promises to change and they don't follow that up, or, you know, they go back on their word, or maybe they change for a little bit, it's just, that is a red flag, okay? That is a red flag, that is a toxic situation. You need to be really aware of that. And again, like, apologies and then a repeat of the toxic behaviour, whether they say, oh, I'll change, or, you know, I apologise, if they are not backing up their words with their actions, then you cannot trust them, and those promises do not mean shit. Like, they are literally just apologising to shut you up, okay? I hope you know that, because they are literally just apologising to get you off their back, because they really don't care about how you feel. They are just wishing that you would shut up, genuinely. And as soon as you shut up, they're going to be like, all right, everything's fine, and off they go again with their toxic behaviour, okay? So trust me, if they are apologising or promising to change and they're not backing it up, they do not give a singular shit. Like, they literally do not, okay? So, these are all red flags I've seen in toxic situations. If you recognise any of these, then I am so sorry, but hopefully these were helpful. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to do that, give this video a thumbs up, follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Okay,